Mike's whistle. One morning, Peter Sam's whistle was out of order. It had worked the night before, but his driver and fireman used it to boil eggs for their supper. Peter Sam found that he could only make burping noises, but this is rather upsetting. Never mind, no one will mind, said his driver and fireman. We'll soon get you a new whistle soon. After all. And Peter Sam knew his driver and fireman was right. But Mike made rude remarks about it. Spleesh, 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 mimicked Mike. It's shocking. Engines without a whistle can't even whistle. And why do you? Asked Murdoch. Why do I what? Try to whistle, of course, said Duke. Shut up, said Mike. Mine's better than yours anyway, he said. Just then Bertram had an idea. You know what, Mike, he said. You know what I'd do if I had no whistle, said Bertram. He whispered it to Mike. I'd lose it. The idea, scolded Mike, because I have a better whistle, and engines with no whistles aren't proper engines at all, he mimicked, and he puffed away to collect his coaches. By the time Mike arrived at the station, he backed down onto his coaches, hissing rudely. The passengers were already on board. The guard blew his whistle, and Mike was ready to go. He was still cross with the coaches. Come on, come on, come on, he shouted. What's wrong with him? Thought his driver. He is so arrogant, but he has never been as bad as this. By the time they reached Marin Station, Mike had to puff into a siding to take a break. He was still not happy. I'll show them. I'll show them, he groaned crossly. He's in a flaming temper up to something, remarked his driver. But something must be wrong, but they didn't know what it was. When Mike had his 30-minute break in the siding, he was ready to go back to work. He then backed down onto his coaches again. He was then coupled to them again. The guard blew his whistle, and Mike had to reverse his coaches so that he could go in a certain way. When Mike reversed into the exact same siding where he was supposed to go, he was on it, and off he went to the other station. The passengers were enjoying their ride until Mike decided to go faster. Slow down, boy, said his driver. You're going to end up in a crash. But Mike didn't care. He was still in a bad mood. Suddenly, his driver slammed on the brakes. There was a horse on the track. Mike was even more cross. Move out the way, you, he said crossly, and he blew his whistle. He blew it so loud as his whistle shot up in the air like a mighty rocket and landed out of sight. With that, the horse did move. Soon Mike's driver and fireman couldn't find his whistle anywhere. Whenever they keep searching, it was no good. We're stuck, said his driver. We can't move on without a whistle. We shall have to go on. Until Mike was ready to go. He puffed embarrassingly with the express, but without his whistle. Mike was still even sulking, but his driver and fireman soon drove him well. By the time it was still sunset, Mike puffed slowly with the express. He was still ashamed with his whistle losing, but no one even noticed. Until just then he had finally reached the top station with the Fat Controller waiting. Mike explained what happened. The Fat Controller did not want to know. I do not have any spare whistles, he said sternly. You shall have to wait until I get some more. And so Mike did. With that, he left his coaches and puffed sadly back to the sheds. But When Mike returned to the sheds, Bertram, Duke and Murdoch were already there. But Bertram could notice Mike's whistle disappearing. Oh well, he thought. He said that engines without proper whistles aren't proper engines at all, so what will he expect? Mike said nothing. He also pretended that he hadn't heard what Bertram said. With that, he said nothing about engines without whistles.